I am a YouTuber. A YouTuber is not just someone who, say, produces content on YouTube, who posts videos, nor is it someone who necessarily makes content on YouTube for a living. A YouTuber is someone who enjoys all of the many aspects for which the site has to offer, and yes, to a large degree, that includes the content creators for which it features. Recently, and in increasing volume, this modern concept and indeed way of life is coming under great threat, most in part due to corporate copyright abuse in the system and by extension to the site itself. This video is being made with the purpose to research the following question. What are the effects of corporate abuse of copyright and fair use law on YouTube and its users, and why should we care? And so this is my research video. Copyright, fair use, and YouTube. The future of the pursuit of knowledge through creativity. For argument's sake, let's put a reminder as to what the fair use law stipulates. It states that excerpts of copyright material may, under certain circumstances, be quoted verbatim for purposes such as criticism, news reporting, teaching, and research, without the need for permission from or payment to the copyright holder. Oh, and by the way, as this is a research video and as a little experiment, at the end of the video, let's see if any corporations do in fact file a copyright claim on any of the small clips that are used for the video. But first, a little background. YouTube was founded by three men in between late 2005 and early 2006 by Steve Chen, Chad Hurley, and George Karim. And while some stories of YouTube's creation have been a bit exaggerated, like being founded at a dinner party, one of the creators, Karim, set the record straight, saying that the initial factors that drove the idea for YouTube were the 2004 Super Bowl halftime show incident, where star singer Janet Jackson's chest was unintentionally exposed, and later, but more prominently, the 2004 tsunami that struck from the Indian Ocean, as Karim had noticed the problem in how difficult it was to find any clips online with any information or updates on the internet. It was these situations that sparked the notion to create a large-scale video hosting site for people to access and share video clips with one another without this problem. Now, in investigating this question, we will be looking at three sources. One defending the notion that copyright is fine, but rather it is in fact being inhibited by fair use law. Another defending the notion that copyright is being abused, and that is this abuse that is serving as a detriment to societal education and cultural significance. And finally, from those themselves on the front line of this issue in question, YouTubers collectively. To begin, we look at Rebecca Tushnet and her article, Copy This Essay, How Fair Use Doctrine Harms Free Speech and How Copying Serves It. In her analysis, she discusses free speech, its role and its connection with copyright law, and her perceived confliction upon both of these in regards to the fair use law. To be exact, she states the following claim. The current version of copyright, in which free speech problems are solved by keeping copyright owners from controlling certain transformative uses, is incompatible with the First Amendment. To elaborate, she cites concepts made by other law theorists. One such example which stood out, used to illustrate her claim, was made by theorist Alexander Michaeljon. Only political speech, speech about government and what it should or shouldn't be doing, should be protected from suppression. She goes on to reinforce this notion by explaining that this kind of free speech is important to a democratic system, but is absolutely pivotal to a democratic society. Discussion of news and popular culture issues are essential and thus are rightly so protected by the First Amendment. But recall that the title and emphasis on her analysis is that copyright is good for this notion, but that laws such as fair use are damaging to it. The idea is that once a commentary has already been distributed out to the public, protected by free speech for all to hear, it is to be completely uncensored and unprohibited by the government, and that's it. And even then, only under or about political issues. See, all other forms of free speech information, such as the arts or literature, are simply afterthoughts, poor stepchildren to political speech, as she's described it. But then I remembered something. This article was written and published by a Yale Law Institutional Journal, and that the author who is conducting this research, relaying this information, she's literally a rules lawyer. And yes, I did say woman lawyer.
Hashtag lady goats can be doctors. Hashtag feminism.
Meaning, to me, very much literal rule and law interpretation, and not much consideration for practical practice of said law. The idea laid out by Tushnet, with all due respect, is not a dialogue, but a social monologue. Indeed, we, yes, under the First Amendment, have the right and truly the need to have a second and third round and even fourth round of speakers up on stage for anyone willing to listen. If they don't like it, they are free to move on and not listen, just like we are with the first rounders, the major news networks. Hinderbrand, our second source, emphasizes this notion as well by noting the following instances of educational and culturally significant moments brought to audiences and effectively chronicled in and by YouTube and YouTubers alike. YouTube has given renewed public lives to thousands or even millions of now classic moments from television, offering access to a rich spectrum of important footage of history-shaping events, otherwise unavailable or too obscure to retrieve and even review. He goes on to note some examples of this, ranging from CNN's coverage of the tragic Challenger space shuttle explosion from 1986 to the footage of the Rodney King riots in LA in 1991 to Caspin Glover playing up his eccentrics on Late Night with David Letterman in 1987. Hinderbrand gives a last statement on the subject, noting, "These small-scale ephemera has historically been the hardest content for fans and even historians to track down and re-experience. This internet library," referring to YouTube, "has fed scholarly as well as nostalgic uses." But we are specifically talking about this matter within the parameters of YouTube. So consider Let's Plays, which are series-long videos depicting the playing experiences of one or more players, including at the very least a commentary over the gameplay relating to the importance of the experience being watched. In short, these are instances of the second and third taking the stage moments in which YouTubers now react and even add on to the conversation in free speech and expression. In truth, all of these are instances of the type of dialogue discussed prior, from someone like myself even, who has posted Let's Plays, to much more famous bigger YouTubers like Chuggaaconroy and his Let's Plays. Like this one, his Let's Play of Okami. He even goes so far as to delve into the importance and connection to actual Japanese folklore for which the game is based off of. Oh, and by the way, Okami is a great game and a fantastic story. You really should play it. And then there's Nostalgia Critic and his famous, well-known, and especially hilarious satirical reviews of shows and movies and even commercials from then and now. And we'll be coming back to him later, by the way. And then there's Angry Joe and his angry reviews of video games, mainstream and non. I mean, yes, his name is Angry Joe and his working title or theme is Angry Reviews, but really not all of them are set up like you think they would be just off the name. Just because he does an angry review on a game like Skyrim does not at all mean that the game was approached or reviewed in such an unfair way like he was going in ready to hate the game. In fact, the game got high rating and high praise from Joe, flaws and all. The thing is, Joe is a fair reviewer. Sure, he can have some bias, he's human, but this angry persona and stage mentality is known by many who have watched his video reviews as an honest, integral, in-depth analysis of a game product. And even still, so often he has been bombarded with copyright strike after copyright strike. But one has to wonder, is it really all about the money? Is it? It's just so funny that a satirical character of Angry Joe's, played by himself in costume, who is featured in some of his reviews, Corporate Commander, is a parody of this generally perceived mentality that these copyright abusive corporations, and that the idea is all about the money. So it would seem atypical that this is in fact the same mentality behind these many wrongfully spammed copyright claims on YouTubers like for Joe. But no. I'm afraid this is about something else, something honestly even more offensive and wrong. It's about control. Hinderbrand had brought this aspect up in his article as well. In many cases, right owners request to have streaming YouTube videos disabled, not necessarily because they are competing with owners' own residual marketing, but because they want to maintain some kind of control over what is publicly accessible and how it is distributed. This is where the YouTubers themselves come in, the ones who are presently suffering under this unfair and honestly illegal abuse of copyright and compounded infringement of fair use doctrine. Last year, in mid-2016, a movement of awareness began regarding this ill conduct, called #WTFU, or Where's the Fair Use? Some clips of the video documenting these YouTubers' response to the situation have been playing silently in the background, and like most everything else featured as a clip in this video, the link to the full video will be in the description box below. But listen to these two instances brought up in that video which reflect the indeed prevalent problem with copyright strike and fair use law neglect on YouTube.
I received a strike on my account on one of the Midnight Screenings reviews, which is a series I do in which me and another person sit in a car in a parking lot after going to see a movie in the theater, and we just talk about the movie. There's no clips, no footage. It is just us sitting in a car talking about a movie. And if you didn't know that, you could know that by just simply watching the video.
Hi, I'm Alex from I Hate Everything. 3 days after I released my review of Cool Cat Saves the Kids, a terrible, infamously bad movie, I received a suspicious copyright strike from the director of the movie himself, Derek Savage, who over the course of about a month used this unfair strike to censor and restrict my channel, and even tried to bully an apology out of me in private emails I've since made public.
So what started out as a means to protect studios and content creators is now being used as a means to silence and steal. We're at a point now where not only is this becoming more and more wrong, it's becoming illegal.
He's not even wrong, nor is he even exaggerating. The blatant abuse of the copyright system against these people is completely wrong. It's threatening not only their right to give fair and honest secondary or tertiary feedback on a given subject, but their right under fair use to give a reflective production like we talked about before. To have our right to talk about these subjects. And yet more so for these established YouTubers, it's threatening their fair and honest right to make a production of this content their very livelihood. These abusers of copyright law want their money, yes, and they will push, bend, and exploit all the rules and rights of others smaller than them, but that's only part of the main picture as far as I'm concerned. It's really only the icing on the cake for them. By doing this, they are strong-arming any who would present their products not even so much in just an unpleasing light, but more so those who would present their product for review and analysis out of their control. This video itself is made in full under fair use law. I don't have to ask permission from Nostalgia Critic, Angry Joe, Chuggaaconroy, or anyone else who has been shown in the clips on this video. And look at the great conversation we're having. You can leave comments down below and even make a video yourself in response to the topics and subjects discussed in this video. You're encouraged to, by the system, and by myself for the record. Recall what I said before about the difference between what Chushnet described as a social monologue, and this, which is what should be a social dialogue. Let's discuss this. It's important. Oh, and by the way, as we're coming up on the end here, let's see if I did get any claims made on me. A bit surprising, no claims made. Granted, I only pre-uploaded the video for 2 days to see if anything would happen, and it could take up to 1 week to be fair. I'll keep an update going in the description should anything turn up. In closing, we must remember YouTube did not beget fair use. In all honesty, fair use begot YouTube. The strongest evidence for this really comes straight from the people being affected by this injustice, the YouTubers. And as a result of my findings, my point of view on the matter has not changed. If anything, it's strengthened. YouTube is a great thing. The idea of a central place of complex cultural, educational, and analytical dialogue is a monumentous advantage for all societies, and that should not be taken away or infringed upon. I am a YouTuber. Thank you.